Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting. Another episode of the Indie Show. Tonight, talking Alienated with my buddy John. What's going on, John?
I'm just excited to have made you read something else.
You made me read several things, you know.
Just forced it on you by buying it and then shipping it to you.
Well, you've done that on a couple of occasions.
Right.
Like, you will read this.
I mean,
usually you don't steer me too wrong.
I mean, I'd like to think.
This is an interesting one because I don't know that I've heard anyone talk about this series other than you.
Right.
And that kind of played out because I did a poll. I think I posted it on Sunday of asking just on my community tab, are you gonna? You literally like the whole time John and I tried pregame, you were quiet. Are you gonna bark now? Yeah, I'm asking Doug in a second, but I asked people just Reddit loved it, Reddit okay, Reddit not for me, heard of it, never read it. What's an Alienated? We're the 5 categories,
right? And
go ahead. 60 people voted.
I'm assuming the winner is what's an Alienated
by a long shot. 55% or 33 of the votes were what's an Alienated of the 60.
Which I think is wonderful because that gives us the opportunity at least to share something that people haven't heard of before. And for me, it was the first time really reading something by Simon Spurrier, and I've since really gotten into his stuff. Yeah.
So what else has he done? Out of curiosity,
the last few things he's been doing are mostly with X-Men. He did the Way of X story with Nightcrawler, which I absolutely loved, and now he's writing Legion of X. He also did the 5-issue, I think it's an Image series called Step by Bloody Step, which is it's almost completely in silence. The entire thing is visuals. It's a post-apocalyptic little girl on a journey kind of thing, but it's like silent. There is no speaking. When they speak in word bubbles, it's in jargon. You can't read it. It's just symbols and stuff. So it's almost entirely silent, and it's just breathtakingly beautiful.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna have to kick the dog out.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go.
So I will be right back. But before I do,
I can do a synopsis if you want.
Hey, Jen.
Yeah.
Hey, Alec, what's going on?
So for those that don't know, that we're talking about Alienated. This is a Boom Studios comic, 6 issues. They have not done a follow-up. This was a one and done story. So if you're looking to read it on your own, it's one trade, one volume, and you're done. Writer Simon Spurrier, artist is Chris Wildgoose, and inker and letterer, I believe, is Andre May. Let's see, Andre May was coloring, and Jim Campbell was lettering. Just a really great creative team for me. I just really was into it. So if you're looking to try out an indie, this is definitely a heavier one, right?
Yeah, heavier is a good thing because John told me nothing about this.
Oh, okay.
You just shipped this to me and said, I think you should read this.
Yeah.
And so, like, you gave me a little bit of a synopsis, a little bit. In the comic book.
We've been talking about that one a bunch lately.
Yeah, you guys have talked about that one a bunch. So I did not realize that was the same author. So
he's a British guy, and he sometimes goes by, I think his Instagram is Si Spurrier, just S-I Spurrier.
Okay. Nice. So, and I do like you brought up a point before I had to remove the dog about like reading something that not a lot of the community has read. Because mostly for the indie show, because I'm so far behind, I'm reading stuff people love. Like, the greatest hits. I'm reading freaking Sandman. I mean, like, I'm reading sort of the greatest hits of kind of thing. So this was fun. This was something that not a lot of people had read. So yeah, I was expecting you kind of teen angst and an alien kind of mixed in, and I was like, okay, teenagers fine, ET kind of thing. Like, that's what I was expecting. And sort of, but this is a lot heavier than that. So I am curious, was this just one that you just tried? What prompted you to find Alienated? Because so few people have actually talked about this.
it was the the imagery on the covers when the first issue of this creature and the visuals of that. So I got this. This was, I think, the cover A. Yeah, I just really beautiful, and then I was trying a lot of Boom Studios books at that time. I was giving a lot of Boom Studios issue ones a shot because I was reading so many and enjoying them that I felt like they were really doing good things. And issue one hooked me so bad that I just never looked back.
Okay.
Also, like as a dad and a teacher, books that capture teens effectively, I think are rare, and I tend to really like appreciate somebody who takes the time to try to get teenagers realistically.
Right. So so we talked about this, and I'm trying to think of where to start here because there's a lot.
Let's start with the premise, right?
Okay.
So the premise is 3 kids named Sam.
Yeah.
Samuel, Samir, and Samantha are walking to school. They're all in high school. I think almost all seniors. They're walking through the woods one day, all dealing with their own internal monologue, internal struggles, internal issues, and they stumble upon this sort of pod hanging from a tree. And when they all get curious about it, one of them reaches up to touch it, and they all sort of help that person up. And when Samuel touches it, it sort of infects them all and links them all to the extent where for the rest of the comic, they basically have mental texting. They can read one another's thoughts. They can send messages across great distances and communicate at will and be in each other's emotional and thought
whether
spaces.
They want to or not.
And they start to realize that this pod creature is alive and has a life and desires of its own. And that journey that they go on over the 6 issues is really about not necessarily the creatures so much as where they are in their lives, where these 3 Sams are.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, for me, like, Chip is which is what they end up calling the creature, like the alien. Hey, Dre. It's not super interesting. Like
the creature, the alien.
Yeah, because it doesn't really. To me, it's probably the weakest part of the whole story. Is it's trying to get back. It like goes to other planets, but it's trying to sort of get home. But it's trying to like experience some. I feel like that's the least well developed thing. Like it's really sort of just a MacGuffin to explore these 3 kids.
Totally.
And the issues they're dealing with. So for me, that was easily the weakest part. It didn't necessarily take away from it, but I would have liked, because a lot of like the final conflict is about, that we'll get to, is about letting Chip go versus using Chip.
Yeah.
And I do think that the weakness of the story is if Chip had more of his own kind of personality, then it becomes more of a
fight for his affection or a fight for
a fight for something, because it's kind of just this nebulous thing. Like instead of being like a being that deserves its own freedom, not that it doesn't, but they kind of dance around that a little bit. I mean, what do you think about that? Because I'm just curious about your thoughts. Because
I don't disagree. He is definitely, the character is definitely a MacGuffin, a tool for the writer to get at these 3 humans and several others as well, but primarily these 3. And it didn't bother me because, well, for several reasons. One, I like these 3 humans and I think they're very interesting. 2, teenagers are naturally self-absorbed and not interested in learning the details of this alien. Instead, just looking to see a reflection of where they are. And third, they wouldn't likely, based on the age, which we can discuss, the age of this creature wouldn't likely gain much knowledge from it in the short
Right.
time that they are connected to it. So for me, it works enough. And like you said, it doesn't take away from the story, but I totally agree that it is an intentional decision to take this alien creature and give him a backseat to the rest of it. And it's really just like a tool for all of them to deal with their crap and to force them to interact in ways they normally probably wouldn't have.
Well, yeah, it forces them to confront things that they wouldn't, like you said, that they wouldn't have. And some of that confrontation is not pleasant and maybe not to their benefit necessarily.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the three kids before we get into exactly what happens. Is we have Samuel, who's the new kid in town. He is, based on what you get here, just him and his mom. His mom basically moves from town to town because of her job and for work. And she's sort of I forget how he describes her, a superstar policeman that comes in and helps like up stats and then moves on to the next thing to like help help small town police sheriff's offices get their act together kind of thing. Yeah. Is basically what you get. And so Samuel's dealing with all of the crap that goes on with being both the new kid, but also just a kid that moves a lot. Like if you think about like a military kid or anybody, like he's got all of that stuff going on, abandonment issues, not being basically invisible in his own mind.
Totally.
Because he's always like someplace new and people don't really know him. And the other two, Samir is like kids that we all met. I feel like that.
Oh man.
Like that is the kid that's trying to be everybody's friend, be the center of attention. I'm buddies with everybody, get along with everybody, will do whatever sort of just to have friends, but like it's just struggling so much because also abandonment issues that we find out because his dad left and he is a Muslim in a place that's not, and he doesn't necessarily even believe in that, and like he's just struggling with who he is and trying to find validation through others liking him.
Totally. And then we've all known those people, right? That mask their happiness or put their happiness mask on to mask insecurity, frustration, disappointment, all these little things that clearly are not fun to deal with. And so Samir is this great character who has so many frustrations and doubts in his life and can't manage them all, but wants everybody to be happy and wants everybody to like him. And so he is working really hard to make that happen. It takes all of his energy and all of his time to do this. Very relatable character.
Very much so. And then the last of our three Sams, which is kind of a running thing, which was throughout the whole thing. His ship is often like Sam, like, and it's is Samantha, who we meet at a stage where she's trying to disappear. Like she doesn't want to be noticed. She's the opposite of Samir at this point. She wants no one to. You get the impression she used to be popular. She used to be a part of like a lot of things, and now she's just trying to 6 more months, as she says at the beginning, like till she can get out of here and go to a new place where they don't know her anymore. And as we find out through the course of the story, she basically went to a party and did what a lot of teens do with her boyfriend, and she ended up having to give away she was a pregnant teen, and she ended up having to she gave her child away to adoption.
Yeah. And
she's dealing with all of this. And of course, all the names that get called to the female side of any of those kind of things, where the boy is, way to go, hero, even today, we still, particularly in a high school environment. And she's, slut, whore, all the horrible names that go with it. And so she just wants to get through the last 6 months of school and be gone. What did you think about Samantha?
I mean, I like all three kids, but Samantha's the one that I think is easiest to connect with or to feel something about. I read issue 3, which is really her issue.
Yeah.
And I was wrecked. And I read it again immediately, like right when I finished it. And it is still one of the best single issues I've read in the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's an amazing.
It would easily make the top 5 single issues I have read of comics in the last like 5 years. And it is just because of how beautifully her story unfolds, because at this point we have not revealed her
we have
pregnancy.
no idea why. So the first 2 issues, despite them being connected to her thoughts, we have no idea what she's actually dealing with, why she wants to disappear, why she's saying 6 more months, why the other kids are giving her a hard time.
And each issue, after the first couple issues, when we're setting up the plot, each issue after that kind of takes one of our 3 Sams and gives them a chance to bond with this alien robot Chip.
Yeah.
And when they do that, they confront their issues, because Chip has amazing abilities, whether that's the telepathy, telekinesis, energy projection stuff, or whether it's time and space travel, dimensional powers. And in her case, it's the chance for her and several others as well to get what they feel like they've always wanted. In her case, she wants to confront the guy who she thought appreciated her, loved her, cared for her, put her in this situation, and then ditched her.
Yeah.
And wants him to understand a fraction of what she's going through. And the journey is beautiful because the end is her realizing that it's not what she wanted. And she actually wipes his memory of the entire event and realizes she's not going to get what she wants out of it.
No.
You know, that she knows who he is now. She knows who he is as a person, and she's not going to change that with this knowledge. So for her, it was more of a journey to realize I need to let go of what I had hoped I was going to get from that relationship.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking, and it's beautiful, and it's amazing. And I just freaked when I read it. I was just absolutely floored.
And it's going to be a theme throughout as we talk about this. Their ability to use Chip.
Yeah.
And what they do with Chip. And she's the first one that they use him once as a group in issue 2.
Yeah.
Well, they use him accidentally at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like they use him. Basically, there's a kid,
a bully,
and a kid that is, I'm trying to remember his name. What is it? Louis? Is it?
It's Leon. I think.
Leon.
Yeah.
Leon, who is the bully, and a kid that's dealing with his own issues.
Yeah.
That's clearly like you just get not popular and not has a grudge against everybody. You know, a lot of anger. A kid that we seem to hear a lot about in the news anymore. They even discussed that after. And basically they make this connection with Chip, and they're all thinking to themselves, and then Samir ends up talking to Leon and makes this stupid decision to I'm going to get Leon even to like me, and tells him about what they found, and basically ends up Leon does what he does, which is he basically ends up in a fight with Samuel and pulls a knife on him. Yeah. And and whatever Chip does here, I don't know that
he basically vaporizes him, atomizes him, just turns him into nothing, and then he's just gone. He's just gone. So
wild. In their defense, they're distressed. They're and they don't know that Chip could do any of this. And they're like, stop it, make it, they're yelling at him to stop and stop, go away. And Chip makes him go away. Right. I mean, it's really what happens.
He's a very genie in a bottle kind of alien. He gives you what you want. You just might realize it's not what you really wanted.
Yeah. And so basically they're responsible for the death of this other kid.
Yes.
And they don't, the level of guilt they have about it is disturbingly low.
Right.
I forgot to get me a drink before we started, but oh well. And I get it because the kid was gonna hurt one of them, was gonna hurt them. Like, but like, and I don't think they fully understand what happened to him, and they know that they didn't do it on purpose. But in issue 2, we've met her in issue 1, but we meet Chelsea, who used to be Samantha's friend.
Yeah.
And is the girl we all also know from school, the popular girl that, once everybody look at me, and everyone does, at least in high school.
Right.
And it's kind of fake nice, but, really popular. And this whole thing where they can see inside her head when Samir touches her.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's just like, and their reactions to that of just like disgust, and they try to teach her a lesson, but we see right off the bat the difference in the three of them. So they realize they can use Chip, like or Samuel realizes they can use Chip, and so they try to teach her a lesson. And it starts out sort of mostly harmless. Like they're messing with her. What's the movie where they're like, Real Genius, where they're like, cunts, and they like put the chip in it and they're like talking to him, this is gone.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
it's totally that's what they're doing. Like the Real Genius bit. And they're messing with her like, this is God. Well, Samir and Samantha go to walk away, and Samuel decides it's not enough. And, it actually does real damage to her. And so we see right off the bat, there's a difference in them. And I think we see it for sure. So that's the first kind of 2 issues a little bit. Like the second issue is where they use him for the first time. And then we get 3, 4, and 5 are Samantha, Samir, Samuel, each using Chip for their own, dealing with their own things. And we basically, like you said, issue 3 with Samantha and confronting the boy, taking him basically to see their child, like in the family that adopted him, and sort of trying to punish him, but then seeing, like, when she sees that family with the baby, and that he's happy, that it's, in many ways maybe worked out for the best. Like you see her here, like just angry and fired up, and I'm gonna
make it like you never existed.
Yeah.
Right. She says, he's like, I don't want to go see him. And she's like, you'll acknowledge what you did. You'll acknowledge what you are to him. Because if you don't, if I won't just make you invisible, Craig, I won't just make everyone forget you. I'll make it so that you never existed.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Some of this like teen anger that they tap into, or that in this story, is like shocking.
Yeah. I mean, the level of anger that we see.
Yeah.
And, and he, it's like, I deserve a normal life. I deserve to be happy. And it was like, he wasn't ready. And, when teens do things they shouldn't, but you see her hear the baby. Like she goes from this angry, blue-eyed, ready to destroy him monster. And then after she sees that panel, like her face, and him basically saying, I wasn't ready. That's all it was. But like in her decision, and she makes the decision right there that, like you said, she ends up just wiping his memory of the whole thing and lets him go, and lets all of it go to a certain degree. And
the metaphor of raising a child is all through these issues. They have the like prosthetic baby that she's supposed to care for as a senior in her health class, the one that like cries and wets itself and things. You have the baby she actually bore, And then you have Chip, who seems to be defined as a newborn,
Yeah.
that it is glomming onto them to learn from them. And the learning process for Chip is very painful. When they are enraged and out of control, Chip is enraged and out of control. He feeds off of their emotional state.
Yeah.
And all through the series, you see him growing. You see Chip expanding his abilities, his forms, and it's all in relation to the three Sams and where they're at emotionally. I think that's fascinating, because it also is a way of understanding the three Sams. You watch what Chip does visually. I think Chris Wildgoose, the artist, really taps into that visual tool to represent an emotional state. And I think really the evolution of the way Chip looks through the series is kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, because Chip is really, he's sort of just feeding off of emotion and mental thoughts and using that to grow and figure out and like build toward like as he grows up. It's what he needs to like, it's part of why he came here was to, and yeah, you see like at the end of their interaction, like how like when she makes that decision and how like she's at peace with it and he's very much at peace and happy, and which is not so much the case after the other two deal with Chip.
No, I think the toxicity that some of them are exuding, and even Samantha, all through her moments, you can see it sort of tearing Chip apart.
Yeah.
And it gets worse, when we get to Samuel, the red-haired boy who is this YouTuber, social avenger, I think is kind of how he would view himself. Somebody who views like his purpose to incite violence or social change through revolution. This is really tearing Chip apart. And he is losing his ability to relate in a human or in a compassionate manner.
For sure. And yeah, you see, like, in some ways, I feel like Samuel gets more of the focus than the other two. I feel like Samir maybe obviously gets sort of the least, and he is though issue 4.
Yes, which is my second favorite issue.
And I totally get that, and we'll get to why the Samuel issues would not be your favorites. And it's sort of Samuel.
It's because he's the villain too. Like ultimately,
it's his choices that are.
It's a villain story in a lot of ways. Samuel as the first character we meet, and his journey into not being able to control these negative emotions, and then you see Samira and Samantha struggling with all the same things, but coming to different solutions.
Yeah. So
you want to talk about 4? Sorry.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Samir. So we focus a lot on Samantha here, at least through issue 3, and we'll talk about her again toward the end. But so we finally get, like, we've seen Samir in the first 3 issues, and it's really this kid, and you can tell because you get some of his thoughts that he's struggling despite his effort to be everybody's friend, and like what he's projecting into the world, but he's struggling, and we finally see, like at the start of it, he's praying with his mom and his sister, and it's like, I don't even think I actually believe in God, kind of thing. And it's all at the same time where like Samantha's in church and Samuel's doing his YouTube thing, and he's like, trying to basically he's distracting them and basically takes Chip. And he uses it, like he talks about, you better believe I know how to get my way. Anything, I'm the freaking best at distractions. He basically distracts the two of them so he can get Chip by himself.
Yeah.
Because he's got his own purpose that he wants to use Chip for.
I love the way the artist uses spread pages and splash pages. Sometimes they're just real psychedelic because of what Chip is being enabled to do. But the one you just shared, where we get Samir shirtless sitting in bed, First time he's been in a short sleeve shirt or no shirt, and we realize he is a cutter, that he cuts himself. You look at that picture of him, that's not hair. Those are cuts all across his arms.
You had no idea of that beforehand.
That has been kept from us. And you see a little razor blade in the container with the cigarettes next to him. And you realize that this guy cuts himself to feel something other than what he is feeling. That whole teen, big topics being dealt with here as far as teen emotional status and mental health. And you see this character that we thought maybe was the most well-adjusted isn't, and might be the least well-adjusted. And all through this issue, they do a great. This is a great job of what like somebody like Christopher Nolan does really well, which is to skip around and yet somehow have a cohesive theme and plot happen. Right. We have Samir sitting in his bedroom cutting himself. Right. We've got Samantha going to church and living her life. We've got Samuel dealing with his mom and his YouTuber secrets that he's trying to keep. And we've got Samir also traveling in space and time with Chip to confront the father who abandoned him.
Yeah.
And it's all happening simultaneously from page to page. It's all going on. And sometimes all you get is a close up of a razor blade on skin, or you get somebody in church.
Psychedelic.
Oh my gosh. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like Silver Surfer Black kind of stuff that you get. Because when he's traveling in time, sometimes it's just very simple, a black background. Other times it's incredibly elaborate where like things are bleeding across and you have all his youth on one page, basically his entire youth, where you see his relationship with his dad and then wondering why dad's not there anymore. Blaming himself, which is a huge part of this storyline where you see him saying, it's me, right? It's me. And then finally, when he listens to his dad says, no, I doubted my faith. I met a woman. I'm not even practicing my faith anymore. And Samir basically says, like, are you kidding me? I've been blaming myself all this time. And it's you that's had the problem, not me. And Samantha, who's made a positive connection with Chip, rushes, because of course they're all connected, rushes to him and finds what he's doing to Chip and realizes you're hurting him. Your pain has become his pain and he is being torn up.
Chip, like when he gets angry after that, you see Chip like bleeding from the eyes.
Yeah.
And then you see him in the background there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you see what he's like. Because we see Samir's been cutting himself as he's doing this with his dad, like in reality, while he's meeting with him in his mind. It goes for 4 pages of him like, I'm sorry, it's my fault. I could be better. Before his dad tells him, and the turn, like the anger, like when he realizes, wait, it's not me. And you see Samantha rushing through town, like she's running to try to get to him. Because she realizes what's happening, whereas Samuel during this doesn't really care.
No,
because he's dealing with his own stuff.
Exactly, he's dealing with his own. How many followers did I get? How popular is my YouTube? How much is my self-worth? And it's all based on algorithms. It's all based on social media. And you can see him spiraling down as Samantha's spiraling out, and Samir is stuck in the middle. He's not making forward or backward progress.
So she arrives in time to basically try to talk him out of it. But by that point, you see Chip is like, it hurts, but Chip's not just feeding off of Samir at that point.
They're all connected, and I think that's one of the things that's so fascinating about this ET, if you will, is that he's not just in one place at one time. He is in a lot of places simultaneously and feeding off of all of them at the same time and linking them to with best intentions probably, but for all we can see, it's hurting Chip more than helping them.
Yeah. And Samantha, like at the end, like you get this rise up, and it's not
Oh my
Samir's words, but his
wow.
his
Right?
dad is like destroyed, and just this huge flash of anger through Chip, and then Samantha's like, "Wait, who did this?" And we see it's all because Samuel didn't get chosen for a guest slot on a YouTube show.
Yeah.
I
That's how
mean,
I act when I don't get invited on the indie show.
yeah. And look at like Chip's form, like
Right? Look how he's changed from the first issue, which I can pull up. He's on the cover pretty big here.
yeah.
Now you just look at his form, his arms he's got arms, he's hunched over, he's got so much more size. He's almost become a teen in some visual fashion, right?
Yeah.
The visual style, I mean, I can't say enough about what Chris Wildgoose does here, because I've never heard of him before. I haven't read anything from him since, but he's just really good.
Yeah.
And I really love his use of panels. Like he tells a story with panels super effectively. Like he really gets in there and will throw in a wild spread page, but then at the same time, the next few panels will be basic, grids and paneling, and you'll track the story super effectively. I think he really does great work. His characterizations are a little cartoony, but I love the form of them. I love the style, the look of his pieces. It reminds me of like an animated movie in some ways. I just really I'm drawn to it. I think he does a phenomenal job. And then of course the color work also absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
And we could mention at one
Andre
point.
May.
Yeah. The idea that they do a great job of letting us be in three minds simultaneously by giving each one of them a different color for their word and thought bubbles, so that when they are communicating on the same page telepathically, you have green, you've got blue, you've got, is it red, I believe,
Red.
and you can see who it is just based on the color, so that when they speak, it's in a certain color. When they think it's in a certain color. When they're narrating, it's in that same color. So there's like a uniformity of language happening. I've never seen an artist do that before.
Yeah.
I thought it was really effective. And I was never confused.
Yeah, and you get so you get their word bubbles when they're thinking at each other, blue and red. Mm-hmm. But she's not talking, but her narration is just a green box. And if you get the others, their boxes are red or blue. And it's a very effective for, I guess, the letterer. I mean, you got to get
it's like coloring, lettering, and of course, I'm guaranteeing that it was in the script that Simon Spurrier would explain it in a way that could control the narrative and let the audience be able to follow it, because it could easily be a confusing mess. There's narrators, there's thought bubbles, and there's word bubbles, and they're all happening, and there's three characters simultaneously connected across time and space. So easy to be confused, and I didn't feel like I ever was.
Yeah. So let's talk about Samuel. So we meet Samuel at the beginning, the new kid in town, and he's obviously got his little YouTube angry rise up. We got to take back the world from the
system, the man.
Yeah. And we see, though, after their incident with Leon, that he's in touching with Chip. He has a flash of Leon's memory of Leon basically taking a gun to school and saying something like, "I deserve," which is funny because Leon's having many of the same thoughts Samuel is. I deserve to be liked. But being noticed will do, is what Leon has with the gun. And you see Samuel go through this, and I think it's so interesting that I love his interaction with Vern, who we haven't talked about yet, who's the other kid. Leon was in the
AV club.
The AV club. They were doing videos and TV and stuff at school, and it's him and Vern, and they're talking about Chelsea, and Vern's trying to befriend him and bring him in. Here's the new kid. He's got similar interests to me. I want to get to know him. And they're talking about, I love the scene where they're talking about Chelsea, and Vern's like, I'm Vern, by the way. He's like, hey, you want to work on some stuff? I did this documentary. You want to, I can help you with their stuff, help me with my stuff. And Samuel like makes this comment because he's focused on Chelsea, who's like the star at the moment. And he's basically some other time, Vern, like barely paying attention to him. And he's like, she can't win. She's awful. She's insecure and fake and so self-absorbed. And it's him. He just described himself to a T.
Yeah.
And it's, the whole rest of the story is like Samantha sees Chip as his own thing. Like I told you, it was weak that we didn't get Chip as his own thing, a weak aspect of the story, really. Samantha sees, and then eventually Samir comes to see Chip as, no, this is something beyond us.
We have no right to try to control or use this like it's our tool.
Yeah.
Right. It is its own life form.
Yeah. Samuel never sees Chip that way.
Never. It's a tool always.
It's power that he's been craving.
Yes.
A way to be noticed, a way to be seen. And later
thanks, Vinny.
And so we get to his chapter, and it's all about this YouTuber that's coming to town. That's gonna have, when he comes to a town, he pulls a guest star in, and Samuel doesn't get chosen. He's so sure that he's so much better than everybody else that he's gonna get chosen because he's got a real message, and his is important. And all kids think. I mean, like we all think that way to a degree. You want to be noticed. You want to be. Heck, you and I are doing YouTube. It feels good when you get a bunch of views on a video. Or, we don't. So none of us are immune to what Samuel is feeling, but he can't move past it. I don't know. He can't accept that others might have things to say just as important as him. And and the funny thing is, Vern, the video did enter, Vern wins, but he asked him to collaborate with him. I think if we work together, we could do something special. And Samuel doesn't want to hear it. Doesn't want a part of it. No, I'm special. So what did you think about all this setup here of Samuel's little, before he throws his hissy fit here?
It was the hardest part of the series to read because you want to have so much hope that these characters will rise above the challenges they're facing. And of course it's not possible. And Samuel is the one who falls most victim to his baser instincts. I think Samuel is you want so hard, you want so much to see him succeed. And you at the same time can see, having reread this story 3 or 4 times, you can see him in issue 1 on this trajectory. It is clearly laid before him, and it's hard to watch someone young be so blind to their own potential and to their own value, and to see all the people around him, the Verns, if you will, who clearly value him, but it's not what he wants. It's not the one that he wanted. It's not the ones that he needs.
He doesn't want value he wants this. It's so fun because he wants recognition and notice. And then the people like Vern and even Samantha and Samir to a degree that are trying to notice him, are trying to interact with him. He can't see them because he wants this nebulous love from the outside world. You're never gonna know that you're not gonna get. I mean,
which is something that as a young kid probably is not easy to grasp. It seems so. I was having a conversation with my girls about the modern era where social media makes you see so clearly success, right? You can see wow, that woodworker is amazing, and look at the cool things he's made. Or you can look and see man, that movie reviewer on YouTube, he's really, look, he's on the red carpet now and he's doing all these things. He started as a YouTuber. you can see success so clearly. What you never really see is the journey and the failures and the screw ups and the hard times, and you don't see any of that. And it's so glossed over and so buried because there's no money and cachet in the failure learning portion, but there is in the look at me moments, right? And it can infuse one with this necessity to be perfect, because the first time out the gate, it's got to look like that guy's YouTube video, or I've got to be able to hit the home run like that guy did in the game, or they're cutting all the struggle and they're showing all the success. Watching the basketball, was it the Lakers show on HBO right now, Winning Time.
The Winning Time,
has been powerful in showing. It's so easy to look at Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and think, well, that's a recipe for success. Like, easy. And you don't see the struggle. You see the big game, and you see the playoff final. And I think it's the same here for Samuel. It's easy for him to see the success in this YouTuber he idolizes, but the second he sits down with him and realizes he's a 45-year-old, balding guy who just is an egotist and has worked hard to create a platform where he can assert power
and pretend. I mean, he's not who he is on the YouTube.
No, he wears a mask and pretends.
Projecting to the world is not the guy.
Yeah,
he's an actor. He's become an actor. He's found something that works, and he's using it to make money. And where Samuel thinks they're this, they're going to be kindred spirits because they both want to change the world.
Right.
And
he doesn't realize it's a branding ploy to his idol. And when he meets his idol and sees through all of the visage that he's created, he snaps. And that's the Samuel we get, that we've been building towards. That is the villain in the series. Samuel basically kills him, takes his identity, and wants to then take over the show. And in doing so, also obviously drama at the hospital, if you want to get into the hospital a little bit.
Well, before we get into that, I want to get into the one thing that we do see from Chip in this is when Samuel's using his rage, Chip, the one time he's like, please, it hurts. And Sam's hurting, and let me go. Let me hurt. He's like,
his language and ability to communicate expands, right? Chip starts as just being able to make beeps and squeaks, and then it becomes Sam, and it's often Sam. And then it slowly, because of Samantha in a big way, teaching him about ice cream and whatever, it becomes in the fifth and sixth issues, his ability to really communicate the pain that they're putting him through.
Yeah. And he's like, not hungry, as Sam is basically trying to feed him this waxy guy.
Yeah.
But all Sam can think of is, you're to focus maybe, is I deserve this. When he doesn't, he just,
he just wants it really, really
he just
bad.
wants it.
Yeah.
And he takes over the guy's show, pretends to be him, and he goes on this rant, and I love this rant.
Are you talking about issue 6 or issue 5? Are we in
issue 5? The end of issue 5.
Yeah.
Right? Or is it the end of issue 5, before we get to the hospital.
Okay.
Where he's on the show and he's ranting and we're gonna rise up and blah blah blah. He's got this huge speech prepared. And it gets to the end, and Vern was supposed to be on the show, and he's like, the microphone's in the helmet, man. Nobody heard you.
It's such a good moment, right? Because you never see the failure, you only see the success. And here we have Samuel having to confront an epic failure. Given the chance, he's killed his idol, taken over, joined the show, living the dream that he's wanted to dream, and he blows it. He blows it catastrophically.
But he doesn't take, again, it's not, he can't take, he can't see where he's made the mistakes. It's just, it's not fair. He's been mistreated.
Yeah.
You did it. Like nobody else
You've
was
been
involved.
basically killing people.
Yeah.
And all in an effort to become loved, famous, whatever you want to call it. And he has this huge, like you're saying, moment where he's pretending to be his idol with the mask and everything. And then he throws the mask off and does the big speech. But yeah, the microphone is in the mask, so nobody could hear the big speech. And then he just unleashes Chip.
Rage.
And when he does it, the problem is they're all connected, and Chip is at the hospital where Samir is, after cutting himself so much and almost dying, he is in the recovery ward. And this is the moment when all of that emotion, betrayal, all alone, rage, it all just builds up. These amazing, like,
look at
psychedelic
Chip during
panels.
all of these, like just the pain Chip is in, and then you see him like burning and red, and
Yes.
Like,
and it just basically, he shows up at the hospital floating in the air, and he creates a giant, I guess you could call it
Samir's ratting him out, or confessing.
And he basically blasts like a hole in the place and floats in, and in doing, he kills his mom. Yeah. There's her. Oops, sorry. There's her.
Her badge.
Her badge torn up, and Samir appears to have been damaged as well.
Well, Samir's just gone.
Yeah.
Like where his bed was is just gone.
And that's the end. That's his like rise to power, which leads to our final issue of the only two people still connected to Chip having to battle for, I don't want to say his affection, because I don't think that's the reality. Battling for his spirit, his soul. Yeah. If you want to get metaphysical.
And it's
Nope, sorry, it's just me.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was looking and not saying, but yeah, it's like you see him basically put on this mask, and he's like, I did all of it, but he's still like, Samantha's trying to talk him down.
Yeah,
and it's working. It's sort of. She's got him like calm down, and like she's basically, and Chip's reaching for it. Like Chip's like, I don't want to be with him anymore.
You can see her calling for him with her hands while she's talking to Samuel. She's trying to get the creature away from him because she believes that power is going to be wielded here soon to do something horrible. Yeah, and beyond what's already been horrible so far. Like,
yeah, I think he's already killed multiple people.
Yes,
and it. And I love how his justification and her thoughts, and his thoughts during this confrontation, and she's like, it hurts him when we disagree. It hurts him when we're guilty. You know what he wants to be like, to set free. And he's like, no, it's too important. The things he can do is big. It's too big for petty wants, but it's his petty wants. And she's like, bullshit. This is what you want. It's not what you're not accomplishing anything. There's no bigger mission here. This is just you. And I love where they like their mental, where they're not thinking to each other their own thing. And it's like, it settles on him like, it isn't about me. It's about the world. I mustn't stop. And she's like, I can see it. It isn't about the world. It's about him, but he won't stop. He doesn't dare, because then he'd have to live with what he's done. Yeah. And, and he's so far gone, and he's just decided that, and it's one of those things, power corrupts, and he's done something horrible. Instead of dealing with it, which we run into so much, it seems like, this whole inability to deal with the consequences of your own actions. It's always somebody else's fault. It's it's the world's fault. It's the president's fault. It's it's whatever. It's always somebody else. We've gotten to the stage where, and that's what he's doing. Is he's like, and she says it, because he realized, like, he has to blame somebody else, otherwise it's just him. Right. And like,
and I love there's a single little panel buried in here where you see him as Leon with the gun in the same pose in front of the mirror, and it's like, oh,
Yeah,
you're
he's saying the same things. I deserve
you're
to be liked.
slapped with the concept that Samuel's no different than
Yeah.
Leon, who we have objectively decided at the end of issue 1 might have deserved what he got.
Yeah.
Now we've got our character that we've kind of cheered for all along in the same place. In that way, I think what I loved across the board is the way the Cy Spurrier and this team has humanized things that we are maybe a little too accustomed to. Teen suicide, teen pregnancy, these children doing these horrible mass shootings, right? These things that we have become very comfortable with. And so this story humanizes a lot of that, puts a face to some things, puts a human connection to some of these things. And it's heavy. I'm not claiming that it's not, and I'm not trying to tell people this is a pick me up, but I do think this is one of the most thought provoking indies you could pick up, and something that's definitely going to make you, if you have kids or don't have kids, if you want to get an understanding of what the teenage experience is now versus what it was maybe when you were a kid, this book would give you that in a big way. So
we kind of see Samuel live out his big goal here. Like he wins. It appears that like he wins.
Yeah.
And like so and his big thing is he destroys the whole town, and he's like, now they'll come, now they'll see, the oppressors will, Washington, Capitol Hill, and he thinks he's going to accomplish this huge goal. And what we see is when she told Chip to do it, he basically trapped him in his own mind.
Yeah.
He just and she's like, do it, I said, and Chip did. And but at that moment, and then she's just apologizing for what they became and what they put him through. And
you watch Samantha in the 6th issue. I will say the 6th issue was always my least favorite. And it still is, but mostly just because some of those other ones are absolutely amazing. 3, 4, and 1 specifically are outstanding. And 6, one of the things I really love on rereading it has been watching what Samantha's trying to do and all the different ways in which she's trying to overcome Samuel and Chip and what they're doing. Yeah. Whether it's coaxing Chip away from him, whether it's talking to Chip, whether it's trying to just basically get past that connection that they're sharing. Yeah. And of course, at the beginning, it's just trying to communicate straight to Samuel and then realizing that's not going to work, that Samuel's beyond her logic conversation to have.
Yeah.
And the inception moment of the story is her basically realizing I can trap him in his own mind where he can live out his fantasy, but he'll never be more than that.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. It's wonderful. I almost wanted a splash page from him repeating that little loop of I can't leave this loop to just him laying on the ground with her over him. But I love the eyeball slowly coming out from his eye.
Yeah, being what was the destroyed town and then becoming,
the crater.
The crater.
To his eyeball and then to him basically comatose.
Yeah. Because, you see it I do wish this panel was on the top of the next page.
Yeah.
Because it immediately goes to you can tell what it is, and it's and you see her and Chip, but she lets Chip, she sends Chip on his way, sends him home,
which is a great splash page as well. Just watching him shoot off,
and then we pick up with her the epilogue. The part I do love, I think it's just as good about the whole thing that makes issue 6 better for me is the epilogue.
Yeah.
Because it starts out 5 more months. College, state, crowd, but it's back to where she was. You feel like it. It portrays this. And you see Chelsea, who's out of her little coma, and her reconnect and talk about what they did as a kid and being friends. And, you see her just thinking through things that, I'm gonna enjoy this. I'm gonna enjoy being a kid for as long as I can. And I love the part where like she's going to her locker and you see like the little flash of blue, like of Chip's little light, and it's like because when she'd been singing 5 more months, better make the most of it, and she's got the ice cream, and all the other kids are like, what?
Some
Like
kid walking through the halls of your high school just eating a
with a
big
tub of ice
bucket of
cream.
big tub of ice cream.
Just like, you know, and so yeah, overall, I'm still not 100% how I feel about the story. I don't know how to rank this.
It's hard because it's not a story that leaves you feeling good. It's
No, it's
definitely a
not
story that
pleasant.
leaves you unpleasant. Yeah, it's definitely unpleasant in a lot of ways. I
And
think just what worked for me so well was I so connected. I so bonded with all three Sams, and I just as painful as it was to watch some of their journeys, I was very much taken by this whole thing.
yeah. I mean, yeah, you see 3 kids that are stumbling for really very real reasons that real kids deal with, that in some cases connect with way too easily. The and it's funny because the one I probably connect with in terms of the issues he's dealing with, like when I was a kid, was probably Samuel. But you see all 3 of these kids stumbling, and not necessarily finding their way though. Like Samantha does. Samantha finds her footing, and Samir, only because she's there to help pull him back,
right,
finds his footing because someone comes to him. She tries to do the same with Samuel, but it's too late. Like he's too far. Like he's done things that he can't take back, and you know he never finds his footing. He can't, and it's sad and it's tragic and it's too very painfully real. I mean, you think about what was in the news just a couple of weeks ago, and that kid, and you don't want to like, and rightfully the world sees him as a monster, and like rightfully the world would see Samuel as a monster because of the choices he ultimately makes. But you realize that it's, you know,
it's too simple.
Yeah,
it's too simple for reality, and I think
reality is a lot more complicated than that.
Right.
And you know, and sometimes we make it, you know, reality makes it easier for them to take the path of the monster than to deal with their issues they're facing.
Of course, because I think that's the curse and blessing, I guess, of labeling things. We need to label things in life because it's important to understand by relating to things that we've seen or heard before, right? Labeling is valuable, but when you label, the drawback is that you simplify something down and lose the minutia, the detail that made it different, unique, important. And I think that's one of the things that makes this book work for me is the minutia that makes every single one of these characters, even Leon, so relatable.
Yeah, for sure. So
I thank you for taking the time to read it and talk about. This is the conversation I really wanted to get out of this book, and I had forced Alec to read the first couple of these, and never in our indie show or in our book clubs we never got back to it. But I got completely wrapped up in it, and I'm just unable to really vent it all in conversation beyond the few people that I know that really loved it, and I know that. Pop culture philosophers Robbie was a huge fan, and he's talked about it a few times on his show. But this, I'm not expecting anybody to come out of this as big a fan as I am, but maybe to gain some fun perspective on the modern teenage experience.
So here's the funny thing about this is, like, I really liked it. I don't even know if like or enjoy are the right words with this book. I mean, does it make sense?
It doesn't. No.
Because it's not it's not a.
But connected to it, right?
I connected to it.
Yeah.
It's not a positive. I mean, you get a nice little positive at the end.
But it's like saying you liked Schindler's List or Saving Private Ryan. Nobody's like loving the experience of watching the beaches of Normandy. Like you're connecting and relating to a very human and powerful thing.
Yeah. So that's why I was like, I don't know how to rate it because like it's one of those things that you see, you're glad you've seen it, you're glad you've experienced it. Like I would recommend it. But boy, do I want to reread it?
You're gonna definitely send it back to me, and I'll have it. I'll have it in my collection.
Like the mood I would have, like you said, like it's like Schindler's List. The mood you have to be in to watch that,
right?
To be willing to watch that again, because it's not feel good. It's not gonna be like, oh, I read this and like for fun.
This isn't an issue of X-Men where you're just like, Storm looks so amazing and there's lightning bolts and we're defeating Magneto.
You're not reading this for fun. You're reading this because it's
emotionally and spiritually significant.
Yeah.
And
I do think it peaks at issue 3. I think Samantha's arc is the best of the 3.
Again, I like that single issue is worth the price of a trade for this book. And for me, like that one issue, it's just magnificent.
Yeah. I think the issue 4 and issue 5, I don't know that they're worse. They're tougher. Mm-hmm. And like, because you see them, I think what makes issue 3 so beautiful is the fact that she comes to a realization that's beyond just herself. And,
yes.
And she sees seeing her baby and seeing that like he's gonna have a good life, like, and realizing like, they weren't ready. He wasn't ready. She wasn't ready. And like coming to the realization that, you know what, like I can't keep holding this against him. We both made the choice. We made choices.
Yeah.
And it's time I let him go, let this fantasy go.
Yeah.
Whereas the other two, like, it's not that the issues are worse necessarily, but they don't make that circle.
Their stories end unfinished because in a big way they're never able to look beyond themselves, beyond their hurt, beyond their frustration, beyond the thing that is spurning them. Right.
This is a very good way to put it. Gore always has a really good, because it's true. Like it's sad, yet they're true. It's what you want. It's not just. It's not happy. And the one thing I'll say about this, like, because I know, like, I have a hard time with shows like a lot of people are like, oh, like Breaking Bad's like the greatest TV show. And the problem I have with Breaking Bad is, like, I get why people think it's a great show. It's like well written, it's well acted, everything's great. I couldn't stand it because I didn't like any of those people. I I just thought they were all just bad people.
Right. And
even in this,
there's moments of that.
Samuel's a terrible person by the end of it.
Yeah. He's devolving. And that's much like the character in Breaking Bad.
But here's the thing. But I could relate to him in a way that I couldn't relate to the character.
Walter White.
Yeah. Like, for me, well, like, it just beyond the thing, like, I couldn't connect to them. And if the whole story had been Samuel, I probably wouldn't have been able to finish it.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's Samantha, there was no Samantha in Breaking Bad.
And so you and I see eye to eye on this 1,000%. And it's why movies like No Country for Old Men don't work for me.
Yeah.
because they're all Walter Whites. There
Yeah.
is no Samantha. And even though Samantha fails in a lot of ways in the story, she's vital in making me feel like this was at least worth my time because the human condition isn't merely tragic.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not necessarily just hope, just the idea that there's something beautiful about the human condition. And there's moments in The Wire too. There's a ton of those characters that are absolutely devastatingly tragic, but the few, like Bubbles, who rise above the tragedy of that universe, give you that little glimmer of the human condition is more than tragedy. Right. And I think that's necessary in a story. And that's what I think the filmmakers of No Country and the writer for No Country, I'm sorry, Cormac McCarthy, but you're just a flawed writer because it's always tragedy. I think what they're missing is that understanding that the human condition is not one note.
Yeah.
And when you play that one note, it might be beautiful and heart-rendering. I kind of want something more than the one note.
Yeah.
That's what Samantha gives us here. Even Samir's journey, I would argue on rereading, he does achieve his ends, but he's not allowed to impart his wisdom to somebody like Samuel. And that's the real tragedy of Samir's story, is because he probably could have been the one to achieve that goal.
But
his story gets cut short.
Because he had gotten to a place, he went further than Samantha did.
Yes.
He was closer to the edge.
Yes.
And he had come back, and he was the one that's like, he had come to a place of acceptance of which Samuel couldn't do.
Yeah.
Samir had gotten to the thing, I need to take responsibility for my choices and my actions. And that so many of us struggle with. Right. So I think you're right. I think he's the one that maybe could have connected with Samuel. Maybe. I don't know.
I think he would have come
so far gone by this point.
It is true. It would have been almost impossible.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else you want to talk? We went over an hour already.
I knew we would, because the truth is there's so much meat on this on the bone here for this series that this 6 issue, just these 6 issues.
It's only 6 issues. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just thank you for being willing to take the ride and to be able to take the time to talk about a book that nobody really talks about, except I know me and pop culture philosophers were the guys that I heard most often discussing it. So I appreciate it.
And I'm glad, part of it was me being lazy, but part of it, I'm glad you and I did this one, just 2 people, because it allowed us to dive a little deeper than we do with 4, because you got to try to touch on stuff, and it's so. Yeah, and I'm glad you sent this to me. I'm glad I read it. It's not an easy read. It's not a fun read. It's not a comfortable read. Not if you're really reading it.
I mean, because again, race, religion, a teenage angst, mental health, gun violence, teen suicide, teen pregnancy. I mean, it's all here. Yeah. These huge, heavy, emotionally weighty topics are all here. And I think Cy Spurrier does an incredible job of balancing it all. It could have easily been a catastrophic effort. And I think he does it far better than I think I could have ever tried that I've seen.
Fantastic job of balancing it. Chris Wildgoose, the artist, does a fantastic job. Andre May, the colors, and we don't talk. I don't think that's one thing we don't talk enough about. It's all a lot of times it's the writer, the artist, the colorist, the letterer. Because we talked about
that's Jim Campbell.
They all do a fantastic job on this, and I appreciate you sending it to me. I'm glad I read it. I'm glad we talked about it. I hope people watch it and watch this and maybe pick it up. I think it's worth the time. For sure. And it won't be a fun. You want to make it in the right mood. You don't want to you don't want to already be depressed when you pick this up.
Right. But it's the same with something like 13 Reasons Why, which I don't know if you've ever watched or read the book.
Have not.
It's the first season, especially, which is based on the novel, is an amazing it's amazing. The concept is so pure, the execution is so solid, and the teen experience so perfectly captured. I think you can, even having gone through it in a different era, you can still appreciate that some things are the same, and what's changed is really just the lens, right? That it's being the perspective is going through.
Yeah. Okay. Final thoughts?
I think we've had too many final thoughts.
Okay.
I think we're great on this, and thanks for taking the time, man.
Yeah. For sure. Thank you, Gore, for hanging out with us. And we had a few people hanging out through most of this. The number varied a little bit, but we had several people hanging out through most of this. John, you got anything coming up that you would like to talk about before we get out of here?
No, not so much. I mean, next week is the final Omni X-Men on my friend Justin No Good Comics channel, and we'll be reading the Phoenix Untold story at this exact same time on No Good Comics channel. The week after on my channel, we will be doing our big giveaway show, and we'll have stuff for the chat. We'll have stuff for all the people like JP that have answered questions correctly or comedically. So there'll be lots of fun giveaways coming up, and then on Monday, a week from yesterday, the two of us are hanging out with community members doing Comic Gories again, folks.
Back.
Dude, not only is it back, like this is the first season where the guest list has filled so quickly. Yeah. I've never had a season fill so quickly. People just begging to begin there, like trying to fit everybody in. I'm already basically booked into September right now.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Magic Lasso has like 3 times the entries as everyone else.
He does, but he's only allowed 1 win. So if he wins the first prize, then he can't win the rest of the night. We'll just keep spinning the wheel again. But his odds are very, very good. His odds are very, very good. But just like last time, he only got to win once. If I end up having to send him a mystery box catered to him, I'm going to run out on Wonder Woman books. So hopefully somebody else wins that one.
Anything else?
Geez, do I need to have more?
No, if there was anything else you wanted to mention. I'll have my usual weekend stuff. Obviously, I'll be on Comic Gories with John on Monday. On Tuesday, after Omni, we're doing more Black Hammer. We're doing the second half of Age of Doom.
I think it's,
On Wednesday, I need to double check, confirm, but we're supposed to be doing Volume 2 of Sandman next week. So we'll have Black Hammer and Sandman next week. And then finally, the last part of my in-stock trade shipment came in. So I will be actively looking for a crew to read Paper Girls with me, as I have all 3 deluxe editions, and we will be getting started on that hopefully soon. So looking forward to digging into Paper Girls. Black Hammer, Sandman, Paper Girls, still got a little Usagi going on. So lots of stuff to read on the indie show. So hopefully some of you will come hang out for some of these reads or join me for something.
I'll try to talk Kate into doing Paper Girls with you. Because
I think that'd be awesome.
As a Stranger Things fan, that book is right up her alley.
Did she ever read it?
Never read it.
Oh,
and I think she's at the right age to read it. So maybe I'll give her the first trade, just see what she thinks about it.
Okay. No, that would be awesome if she wants to join me for that one. For sure.
That would be
yes, Chaos, you were super late as we are getting out of here. So, all right. Maybe Chaos can send us her Paper Girls out, I don't know. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And with that, I'm going to keep John any longer. We're at 1 hour and 18 minutes. Later.